Good morning, friends. I'm Dewey, and my Tech Talk topic for today is Galaxy Watch 4 Surprises Galore. I know that many viewing this Tech Talk are iPhone owners, some of whom already own an Apple Watch or will be seriously looking at the new Apple Watch Series 7 when it's unveiled in the next week or so. Of course, an Apple Watch requires the owner to have an iPhone, and iPhone only, to work properly. Unquestionably, the Apple Watch has set the standard for wearable technology. However, the new Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 series of smartwatches is now a serious contender for Android smartphone users, and especially those with a recent Galaxy smartphone. It also costs about $100 less. The Galaxy Watch 4 Classic model that I ordered arrived last week. When I began the setup, things didn't go quite as expected. Instead, I experienced surprises galore. Surprise number one, the one-page quick start guide suggested first going to the Samsung US support web page. I went there and I found 10 support categories. None were identifiable as being for Galaxy smartwatches or wearables. Frustration. Surprise two. Next was a suggestion to visit youtube.com/SamsungCare to check out Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 videos. I found 168 videos there, but not a single one was labeled for the Galaxy Watch 4 or Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, the one I have. Frustration. Surprise three. Next, the single page quick start guide suggested downloading the tips and user manual. I found a 102-page PDF, downloaded it, and then discovered it was for the Galaxy Watch 3, an earlier model. Frustration again. Surprise four. Undeterred, I went back to the Samsung website and I did find the tips and user manual for the Galaxy Watch 4, the model I have or the other one. I was excited. It was offered in dozens of different languages, but when I located the English version, a notation informed me that it was not yet available. Unbelievable. Frustration. I tossed the quick start guide aside and decided to have to do the setup on my own. Surprise five. After maybe a half hour, my Galaxy Watch 4C was totally locked up with 3 screens toggling in a circle. Oh, frustration. I sat back in my chair and cogitated until a shot-in-the-dark idea came to me to call Samsung at their general customer service phone number. And you can see the number there. You might want to write the number down if you're a Samsung person. I wended my way through the phone prompts and finally reached a live technical service guy. He spoke fairly good English, but with a Filipino accent. I explained my dilemma, and he suggested one by one, perhaps a dozen different remedies to get my Galaxy Watch 4C operational once again. Not a single one worked. I suppose that was frustration too. He then asked permission, which I happily granted, to take control of my smartphone. The two of us worked in tandem for at least 20 minutes, he on my phone and I on my Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. Though he seemed to have expertise, nothing would work. Surprise number 6. Finally, took more than 20 minutes, we hit on the right sequence of actions that started a reboot of my Galaxy, my GW4C. Voila, happiness has returned. It took this Samsung dude only a few more minutes to set up the 3 necessary apps that are needed for my GW4C. These are Samsung Wearable, Samsung Health, and the Samsung Health Monitor. And you can see their logos on the right. Interestingly, only the Samsung Health Monitor app appears in my app drawer. However, my tech guy, the Samsung tech guy, showed me how to easily access the other two apps. I think they come loaded now, some of these, on a new Samsung phone. I've now lived with my Galaxy Watch 4 Classic for 2 entire 24-hour days, and I'm like a kid with a new toy. When I went to bed Friday night, my non-LTE version GW4C still had 72% of the battery level from its morning charge. When I awoke, the battery charge was 51%. Not too bad, I thought. After checking the health data it had generated from my night's sleep, I put it on its wireless charger to bring it back to 100%. Charging took 56 minutes, about the time it took me to get ready for the day. My GW4C health data informed me how long I'd slept, my heart rate range, and my blood oxygen saturation range. I know that the heart rate range and blood oxygen saturation range may not be exact, but are certainly close enough for me. Surprise 7. The blood oxygen saturation part of my Samsung Health app then invited me to do an actual oximeter test by holding my right finger on a sensor on the back of my nearly 4-year-old Samsung S8 phone. What? I couldn't believe it. Happiness. But here's a photo of the sensor. You can see, if you look at the back of my phone, it's in a case, and you'll see the little black arrow is pointing to that vertically rectangular part there. Actually, having an oximeter sensor on a smartphone has been around for at least a half dozen years, I've learned. The Apple Watch has always had it, and Samsung began including it as far back as the S5 and Galaxy Note 4. I just learned that in the last couple of days. A few other Android phones have the sensor, but may not work with the Galaxy Watch 4 series. Surprise 8. And if that wasn't enough, when I went to the Samsung Health Monitor app, I found that I could now do an electrical cardiogram with my GW4C. The phone screen, it shows at the left, is quite plain and simple. And that's the screen you have open when you do the test, which is outlined in the instructions. On the right, it says there, on the right, the phone screen with instructions, whoops, I misspelled instructions, didn't I? On how to do an ECG with the Galaxy Watch 4 is shown. Indeed, happiness. Now, look at the instruction. You open the Samsung Health Monitor on your Galaxy Watch. Make sure the watch is snug on your left wrist, specified left wrist. That's why I wear it. You rest your forearm on a table and lightly rest a fingertip on the top button for 30 seconds. That's how it works. Earlier in my tech talk today, I expressed frustration with the one-page quick start guide that came with my GW4C. I couldn't seem to find the getting started or setup instructions that I needed at the Samsung web addresses provided. I need to confess that when I visited this website again a few moments ago, I clicked on the mobile category, that was one of 10, which opened up 6 new categories, one of which was wearables. Wow, it hit Peter. Surprise 9. I clicked on wearables, which opened up another 6 categories, one of which was Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. This opened up these 5 categories, the first of which seems to be the right place to start. And in small print, it says, setting up your Samsung smartphone with or without, your smartwatch with or without a smart Samsung phone. So that was great. I love the looks of the analog face on my Galaxy Watch 4, see at the left, because I'm somewhat visually challenged, it didn't work for me in bed at night. I solved that problem by going to my Samsung wearable app. It takes me just 5 taps on my phone screen to change the watch face to the watch face at the right. So I do that before I go to bed, do it again when I get up in the morning. It's so quick, it takes me, I think, 10 seconds. And I've changed the face of my watch. So it's great. Happiness, again, needless to say, but my red band that I showed you previously won't arrive for a couple of weeks. Well, thanks for watching. That's my Tech Talk story for today, and I am sticking with it. Stay safe, and the good Lord willing, we'll see you next week.
Podcast, the series. This is part 3. What are my favorite podcasts? I'm Hewie Poplock. This is part 3. Part 1 was what is a podcast? Part 2 is how to listen to a podcast. Be sure to view those videos as well. There are many topics for podcasts. Most of my interests lie in technology, but you can find podcasts on almost any topic you can think of. Here are some lists of some possibilities of podcasts that you may want to listen to. Over the years, my favorite podcasts have come from a group called TWiT, This Week in Tech. Their website is twit.tv, and their podcasts keep you up to date with all that's happening in the world of technology. This Week in Tech is hosted by Leo Laporte. It's your first podcast of the week, and it's the last word in tech. Join the top tech pundits in a roundtable discussion of the latest trends in high tech. It records on Sundays, but you can listen to them later that evening or anytime after that when they're posted. iOS Today is another I listen to, hosted by Micah Sargent and Rosemary Orchard. TWiT TV's podcast for all things iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and more. From app reviews to helpful tips and tricks, from the latest news to the coolest accessories, Rosemary and Micah will help you make the most of your iOS devices. The Tech Guy, no one does a better job of explaining technology, computers, and the internet than Leo Laporte. This feed contains the full content of his twice-weekly radio talk show, as heard on stations all over the U.S. on the premier radio networks. And show notes are available online. Windows Weekly is one of my favorites, hosted by Leo Laporte, Mary Jo Foley, and Paul Thurrott. A weekly look at all things Microsoft, including Windows, Office, Xbox, and more, from the two foremost Windows watchers in the world, Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com and Mary Jo Foley of All About Microsoft. All About Android is hosted by Jason Howell, Florence Ion, and Ron Richards. It's all about Android. It delivers everything you want to know about Android each week. The biggest news, freshest hardware, best apps, and geekiest how-tos with Android enthusiasts Jason Howell, Florence Ion, and Ron Richards, and a variety of special guests along the way. This Week in Google with Leo Laporte, Jeff Jarvis, Stacey Higginbotham, and Ant Pruitt. And they talk about the latest Google and cloud computing news. And then there's Tech News Weekly, which is on every Thursday. It's a weekly hosted by Jason Howell and Micah Sargent. They bring you interviews from tech journalists who make or break the top stories of the week. Jason and Micah give you more context and perspective with an in-depth look at the fast-paced world of technology and how it's changing our lives. And even though I don't listen to it, I thought I'd add this to the list to make sure that those of you who are Mac fans, TWiT does have a Mac Break Weekly as well. These are the different podcasts from TWiT. Now, to listen to podcasts, as I mentioned in part 2, you can listen either on iOS devices with certain applications, including the Apple Podcasts, on Android Podcasts, apps, you've got Google Podcasts and others, and then there's cross-platform podcast apps, and you'll see the arrows next to the 4 that I use. I use Stitcher most of the time, only because that was the first one that I used. I have things set up in it. Here is a page from Stitcher showing the latest episodes that I have not listened to. You'll see the bottom one, you'll see a little line there that I started listening to that, and I've gotten that far where that little line is at the bottom. I can click on the arrow and listen to any. If I click on the first one, it will then, when it finishes, go to the next one. Here are some of the Stitcher subscriptions that I have for podcasts. Here are some that I don't, but just to give you an idea that there are other topics other than technology. My favorite podcast is Tech Meme Ride Home, which is a daily technology and tech news podcast featuring Brian McCullough. And it's every day at 5 p.m. live, but within a few hours, it's online, and you can listen to it on any of the podcast services. And it's from techmeme.com, which is Silicon Valley's most read news source. It's 15 minutes, and you're up to date. Android Central Podcast is another weekly technology and news podcast, which features Alex Doby, Andrew Martinick, and Jerry Hildebrand. It's a podcast about Android for everyone. It's a weekly show about Android, Google, and the best mobile technology. And it is hosted by Daniel Bader. Cord Killers, watch what you want, where you want, when you want, on whatever device you please. Take control of your TV, movies, and more. And this is hosted by Brian Bushwood. The Vergecast is a weekly technology, tech news, and news podcast featuring Nilay Patel. This is the Vergecast, the flagship podcast of The Verge. Every Friday, they make sense of the week's tech news with help from their wide-ranging staff. And on Tuesdays, Nilay hosts an in-depth one-on-one interviews with major technology leaders. The Clark Howard Podcast. Save more and spend less is more than just a motto for money expert Clark Howard. It's a way of life. Clark and his crew, Team Clark, are on a mission to empower people to take control of their personal finances by providing money-saving tips, consumer advice, hot deals, and economic news to help everyone achieve financial freedom. Clark is a nationally syndicated radio talk show host and a consumer reporter for television stations around the country. His podcast, The Clark Howard Show, receives more than 1 million downloads each month and is a hub for listeners to get valuable advice on demand at any time. Kim Komando Explains, award-winning radio host, nationally syndicated columnist, and digital lifestyle expert Kim Komando breaks down the hottest topics in tech. Get insider secrets to protect yourself online, make money from home, secure your devices, avoid scams, and more. The GizWiz is a weekly technology and gadgets podcast featuring Dick DeBartolo and Chad Johnson. Dick Bartolo is known as Mad's maddest writer. He's a writer for Mad Magazine and also for the GizWiz. Each episode features silly, unique, and crazy gadgets and gizmos, fan videos, letters, and more. The Chromebook Classroom Podcast is a weekly education and technology podcast focusing on sharing how Chromebooks are impacting education around the world. It's hosted by author and trainer John Sowash, who interviews a variety of guests who share their Chromebook classroom experience. Taking Note, Conversation with Evernote, is presented by the leader in note-taking and productivity. It's all about Evernote. Pod News, Podcasting News, a daily news, podcasting, and technology podcast featuring James Kryland. Practical Chrome is another, which is a weekly technology, podcasting, and tech news podcast. Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl Miriam Girard is a weekly technology, news, and gadgets podcast. Many times it's a lot deeper than I want to go, but there are a lot of really good items on his podcast. I got screen captures from Podchaser, which is a daily source for podcast discovery. So if you want to look for podcasts, that's a good place to go. And finally, I do want to mention cybersecurity with Bob G., our own Bob G. from Tech for Senior. It's a weekly podcast on cybersecurity news, tips, and updates. This has been Podcasts, the series. Part 3, What Are My Favorite Podcasts? I'm Hewie Poplock. I hope you have enjoyed this 3-part series.
It's Ron Brown with Tech for Seniors. Yes, the Galaxy Watch 4 is out. I got mine last Friday, 4 days ago, and I'm putting it through the paces. Today, we're going to talk about fall detection. Now, I have an upcoming video called The Misunderstood Galaxy 4 Watch. I got the name of this from the last video I made, which was a very popular one called The Misunderstood Fitbit Sense Watch. Now, as a full disclaimer, I purchased the Fitbit Sense and the Galaxy 4 watch with my hard-earned retired money. I don't get paid to sponsor this video. These opinions are my own. So in this upcoming video, I'm going to do something special, and you'll be sure and want to watch this before purchasing this watch. I'm going to look at the 5 health features from a physician's point of view. I'm going to describe what is the health feature, how does it work, and from a medical point of view, based on my 35 years as a clinical physician working in the emergency department, delivering babies, and in the hospital, I'm going to tell you my personal point of view on what I feel about this feature. And you remember the routine. If you like this video, please click the like, and if you want to see more of them, please subscribe. Fall detection. What is it? Well, in order to have fall detection in a device, you need an accelerometer. This is a little chip that goes in the device that you're purchasing. And in this case, it's a watch. And you'll see an example on the diagram, and particularly up on the right corner of a chip on an accelerometer on a device. The accelerometer measures gravity and movement and can identify if you have a fall through the software. Pretty cool. Now, the Fitbit Sense cannot do this. It does not have an accelerometer, so it can't do fall detection. The Apple Watch can, and the Galaxy 4 watch can as well. So let's look at how this works. All right, how does fall detection work? Well, there's the act of falling, and people can fall either forward, backward, or sideways. And as a result of the fall, the accelerometer through the software identifies this and then sends emergency notification through your phone. All right, I want you to stop right there. Before you decide to use this technology for your loved one to identify a fall or a life-saving event, I want you to be sure and watch this video. This is a video that I found in my research, and this is the YouTube site is called All-Star Space, and I'll put the link in the notes below, but I've given you the link on the screen to the video that I want you to watch. In this video, this couple decided to test the actual ability of these devices to identify a fall. And they used 2 devices, one on each arm. One was the Apple Watch 5, and the other was the Galaxy Watch 3. And so they had a watch on each wrist, and they had mats out, and they tried to mimic falls and have the watch go off and see what type of falls would be recorded. And they found some very interesting information. Now, I'm going to tell you, don't do this. This could cause injury and really harm to yourself. I tried it a couple of times, and I'm sitting on a big bruise. I'm not going to show it to you because it's embarrassing. Now, here's the deal. They found that the identification of the fall and the type of movement that caused the fall was quite different between both watches. So the type of movement that would trigger a fall on the Apple Watch was actually different than the type of movement that would cause a fall with an identification on the Galaxy Watch. two different approaches. Now, the second thing that they found was it wasn't that easy to make the watch go off. In other words, they had to fall pretty hard and try pretty hard to make this work. So, does this technology really work for our loved ones? Well, we don't know that. Certainly Apple tells us it does, and Galaxy and Samsung tells us it does, but there is no clinical trial or any body of evidence that really says this technology works. Now, Apple has had the ability to detect falls for a number of years now, and there is plenty of anecdotal information on the wire service that says, yes, I fell, I used the Apple Watch to get the ambulance there and it saved my life. But when you sell 100 million watches a year, you would expect that to occur. So how valid is this type of technology? You must watch this video before you purchase this watch if you're looking to use it for fall detection. This is so important. It's a real eye-opener. The fall detection feature is not turned on by default on the Galaxy Watch 4, so you'll need to turn it on manually if you want to use it. It can only be enabled through the Galaxy Wearable app, so make sure the watch is connected to the mobile device first. Now you'll see in the image today, you'll see that this is the display that you're going to see on your phone, and you'll see that we're going to go down to the advanced features and click on that. And you'll see it says Home Key SOS Gestures. So once we click on that, we'll see the next menu come up here, and you'll see at the top it says SOS. I want you to click that. Now at the top, you'll see two options that you have. You have the ability to manually send an SOS. And this is when you click the home button, which is the top button on the right-hand side of the watch, 3 times. And this will send an emergency alert. We'll talk about that in just a minute. You can turn this on or off. So this would give you the ability, if you fell and it didn't send the alert, that you would be able to manually send an alert. The second, of course, toggle switch is when you fall. So if you don't turn this on, it won't work. So this must be turned on to detect a fall. Then as we move down the list, you'll see who to send the emergency notification to. All right, so we're going to look at this, and we're going to send, of course, I'm going to send the emergency notification in the form of a text message to my wife, Gail Brown. You may also choose the same person to send an SOS call, but you could also define that as 911. So in the case of emergency, when an alert was sent, it would send it to 2 locations. One would be, of course, 911, and the other one would be your whoever you have defined for the emergency notification. Now, the SOS with the home key, this requires the use of the device's location. So when you send an SOS from your watch, your location is shared with your emergency contacts so they know where you are. Now, you can disable the collection and processing of your location information at any time by turning off this function. So after a fall, your watch will alert you for 60 seconds with a pop-up sound and vibration. You can cancel the alert or swipe to send the SOS right away. If you don't respond for 60 seconds, the SOS message will be sent to the emergency contacts that you have set up in the Galaxy Wearable app. So let's see how this works. In order to send an emergency notification with your watch, you have to be connected to your phone. This connection is a Bluetooth connection. So this provides all the limitations for Bluetooth connections. Let's look at your watch. First of all, your watch must be worn and it must be charged. So if you've taken your watch off and you leave it by the bedside table at night, this isn't going to work, because when you get up to have a pee in the night and you fall, your watch must be on. So you must have the ability to charge your watch. In other words, you have to take it off, put it on the wireless charger and charge it, and you must do that once a day. Now, the connection to your phone, as I said, is through Bluetooth. So your phone must be in an immediate area that you're in, not in the car, in the garage, or out on the street. So you must actually have your phone, and your phone must be turned on. It could be sitting in a wireless charging stand, but it must be turned on and connected to a charged watch on your wrist. Now, the other option that you should seriously consider is purchasing the watch as an LTE version. And this LTE version has an eSIM in it. What we mean by an eSIM, this is actually a chip that's in the watch, so you physically don't actually have to put a SIM card in. So the question comes up with these LTE versions is, would you need to have a smartphone, or would they be standalone? And this is a difficult question, and it probably depends where in the world and what country you're in and what service that you're connecting to. It is certainly possible that they could be standalone devices and not needing a cell phone, but that would be dependent on how the individual provider would be configuring the device. Currently, to activate the phone, you need to send a code from a smartphone, and this pairs the two together. But it would be possible to send the to actually have this device activate itself, and I expect in some parts of the world and some services this will likely occur. All right, what is my recommendation as a physician based on this evidence? Well, there's no clinical data to support that this actually works. It's interesting when I looked at Samsung's marketing material today that there's no mention of fall detection at all. Also, the Fitbit Sense does not have an accelerometer in it. Most of the information we have about this is anecdotal information from the Apple Watch. The watch requires to be connected to a cell phone through Bluetooth. Both must be charged and on. They both must be worn 24/7. The Galaxy 4 will require daily charging, and the technology is complicated, and you'll carefully need to select who you're going to choose this. Consider an LTE version. You may look at exploring some simpler options for some people. Just remember that the Amazon Echo products all have emergency notification, as does the Google Nest, and ADT has a very extensive emergency notification devices that you can wear, such as a watch or a pendant around your neck. So there are other ways of simpler technology than using fall detection on a watch. Well, thanks for watching fall detection on the Galaxy 4 watch. And be sure and watch my upcoming video called The Misunderstood Galaxy 4 Watch. In that, I'm going to talk about ECG, blood pressure, oximetry, and snoring with the diagnosis of sleep apnea. More to come. The Misunderstood Galaxy 4 watch. I should have it out probably this next week, and I'll put the link in the show notes when it's out. So until we see you again, Ron Brown from Tech for Senior.